Anna del Valle was the kind of woman who made the world pause when she entered a room. At 47, she dressed with almost surgical elegance, tailored suits, heels that echoed like a military command, and eyes of piercing gray, nearly silver. Her upright posture and glacial stare signaled not just authority, but absolute control. She was a queen, without a throne, but with an empire beneath her feet. As president of the Latin American division of one of the largest American tech multinationals, Anna led a team of 600 employees with a firm hand and an iron fist. Her reputation whispered through the hallways. Strategic, perfectionist, meticulous, ruthless. One mistake near her could mean the end of a career. But what truly made her unforgettable was something more subtle and terrifying: her pathological need to be the center of attention. Her office, on the top floor of a prominent building in Mexico City, looked like an ice gallery. Minimalist, cold, no family photos, no personal mementos, nothing betraying emotion. Only surfaces of glass, concrete, and metal. The only living presence there was Anna herself, always impeccable, her makeup and smile calculated like armor. But as she crossed the threshold of her home, the scene changed. Paul, her 50-year-old husband, wandered through the days like a lost shadow. Once a charismatic and respected university professor, he had fallen from grace. Unemployed for over a decade, every attempt to return to teaching was sabotaged by his record of infidelities, leaked in quiet but devastating scandals. Anna knew everything. Photos, messages, whispers from students. But she didn't leave him. Not out of love, not out of pity, out of strategy. Let Paul fight for the assets, she would murmur to herself between a glass of wine and a financial spreadsheet. She had built her empire with sweat, sacrifice, and sleepless nights. Paul, to her, was just an expensive mistake she now kept in silent quarantine at home. A burden she refused to let walk away with half her fortune. The loneliness was heavy. The years passed, and emotional frustration turned into slow poison. To combat it, Anna began an obsessive aesthetic reconstruction. A series of plastic surgeries, facelifts, liposuction, rhinoplasty, dermal fillers layered with excruciating precision. She traveled by private jet to Colombia, Miami, sometimes without anyone knowing. Each incision was not just cosmetic, it was an attempt to amputate the pain. A powerful woman must look flawless. Always, she repeated to the mirror like a mantra. But behind the untouchable appearance, invisible cracks formed. The emptiness grew, and with it, a quiet desire for something she pretended not to need: connection. It was in February 2023 that an unexpected piece entered the chessboard. The finance department needed reinforcement. One of the directors brought in a new analyst, James Carter, 29, Californian, hair golden like the San Diego sun, hypnotic blue eyes, MBA from Harvard, fluent in Spanish and in charm. In the first meeting, Anna noticed something different about him. There was a dangerous mix: youth, beauty, intelligence, and humility. A rare poison for a woman already vulnerable. "Who's that young man?" she asked casually to her assistant. Eyes locked on him. In the following days, invitations appeared with the subtlety of well-laid traps. "James, come with me to the gym. I need a workout partner." But what Anna didn't know was that James had secrets of his own, and he was about to shake not just the heart of the Steel Queen, but the entire foundation of her reign. Paul Del Valle, at 50, was the opposite of what he once promised to be. When he met Anna, still young, he was a brilliant intellectual, a respected professor in Mexico's academic circles, passionate about European literature and philosophical debate. He had charm, he had presence, and he knew how to wield words like soft weapons. But over time, his vanity overcame his ethics. Paul got involved with students, colleagues, and occasional lovers at conferences. His betrayals piled up like moral debts, and though discreet, they didn't escape Anna's watchful eye. She had her own informants, attentive assistants, complicit glances, calculated silences. She didn't confront. She observed and waited. When the university ended his contract under the guise of restructuring, The truth was clear. Paul was a liability. And, at home, he became an absent presence. He spent his days buried in books he no longer understood, lingering in cafes to maintain appearances and convincing himself he still mattered. Anna, on the other hand, pretended not to notice. But she recorded everything. The wine he sipped secretly before lunch, the deleted messages on his phone, the phone calls that ended the moment she entered the room. "You were once a worthy man, Paul. Now you're just a reminder of what I never want to be again," she said one day, in a rare moment of razor-sharp sincerity. Still, she didn't leave him. Paul knew too much, and she couldn't let him use what he knew against her in court. It was better to keep him close, domesticated, and dimmed. They slept in separate rooms, lived like strangers, but on paper, they were the perfect couple. The kind of couple investors and foreign executives saw at formal dinners and praised for their stability. But inside that silent house, the air was thick, as if both knew something was about to explode, and the fuse was already lit. Over time, the mirror became her only confidant. Anna spent long minutes in front of it, staring at the marks of time that, no matter how hard she tried, kept reappearing. She couldn't stand the idea of seeming vulnerable. Vulnerability, to Anna, equaled weakness. And weakness she didn't tolerate in others, let alone in herself. The aesthetic transformation was meticulously calculated. It wasn't just vanity. It was strategy. Each surgery had a purpose, to reposition her image as untouchable, almost mythological. Her beauty was sharp, almost aggressive, like a gleaming blade. The artificial youth hit a heart hardened by years of abandonment, rejection, and silence. The procedures were done by the most discreet surgeons in Latin America. Miami, Bogota, Sao Paulo. She paid in cash, used secondary identities, flew on private jets with altered routes. No one could know. She was the face of corporate stability, and the inner collapse had to remain hidden. Her red lipstick applied in precise layers. With her new look, Anna reinvented herself in the eyes of the world. In meetings, male glances were inevitable. The women on the board tried to imitate her. Investors saw her as a symbol of resilience. But deep down, Anna felt like a glass-covered building on the verge of shattering from within. She didn't know it yet, but her obsession with control of her body, her image, her emotions was about to be put to the test. Because for the first time in years, she was falling in love. And love, as she well knew, was unstable ground. Dangerous territory for a woman who had always believed she could predict everything. And this time, she wouldn't be in control. James Carter began standing out in the financial reports with an almost intuitive skill. His mind was quick, but his voice was calm. He had something rare in the corporate world: presence without arrogance. Increasingly drawn to him, Anna began making excuses to call him in for brief meetings, budget reviews, or casual consultations. The office environment, once rigid, began to mold itself around James's footsteps. Female employees laughed more when he walked by. The men admired him, and Anna desired him. But something was off. James, though helpful, kept his distance. Polite, yes, but always behind an invisible wall. It was at a regional conference in Sao Paulo that Anna saw the moment that cracked her from the inside. In the hotel lobby, James smiled at a young woman from the operations department. She wore a simple uniform, discreet glasses, and sneakers, completely invisible to Anna until then. But there, right in front of her, they seemed to understand each other in silence. They laughed at something private, a shared look, a brief touch on the arm. "Andy, her name is Andy," said one of the directors, unaware of the slight tremble in Anna's hands. From that moment on, a shadow overtook the executive. This wasn't just rejection. It was humiliation. Andy became a blind spot in her routine. Anna began to discreetly investigate the girl. Badge entries, hallway conversations. Everything seemed innocent. But Anna knew she was losing. That's when she decided to act. She created an international transfer proposal for James. A position in New York, greater visibility, a tripled salary, global projection, and one added bonus: the chance to bring someone with him. Andy, It's in your hands, James. A unique opportunity. You deserve it, she said, with a smile that concealed a scream. And he accepted. Anna watched, motionless, as the two said their goodbyes to the team. Smiles, flowers, hugs. And when James turned for one last look at the office, he didn't look at her. For the first time, the Queen of Steel felt disposable. James's absence left a disturbing void in Anna's routine. For days, she avoided the 18th floor where the financial analysis department was located. The hallways, once lively with a young Californian's presence, now felt claustrophobic, stifled by silence. But Anna was not one to stay down for long. Her response to rejection was methodical, to fill the space with someone better, someone who reminded her of James, but who was more experienced and easier to control. That's how Hugo Menendez entered the picture. Argentinian, 42 years old, MBA in France, an impeccable track record in the automotive and financial sectors. Tall, blonde, eyes of an almost metallic blue. With an impressive resume and a smile that bordered on arrogance, Hugo ticked all the boxes, both aesthetic and strategic, that Anna required. On paper, he was the perfect candidate. But in practice, Hugo was a mirror of everything Anna tried to hide within herself. Vanity, manipulation, wounded pride. From the very first day, the two clashed. He refused to be intimidated. He responded with firmness, questioned decisions, and, at times, flirted with a disarming boldness. You're even more beautiful in person, Anna. But I imagine that also makes you more dangerous, he said in their first meeting, crossing his legs like someone defusing a bomb. Anna ignored the comment. But inside, she trembled. This was a dangerous game. In the weeks that followed, tensions escalated. Hugo hinted at interest, and Anna, at times, confused authority with longing. He began visiting her home under the pretense of late-night meetings, and the wine bottles started to pile up on the table. But any misstep from Anna, a criticism, a condescending glance, was met with biting sarcasm. You try to control everything, Anna, even the feelings you pretend not to have. She grew irritated, filed reports to HR, overrode his decisions. But at the same time, she couldn't bring herself to fire him. Something about him held her like an inverted magnet, an inevitable collision. Until one Friday night, everything collapsed. During a dinner with the board, Anna tried to expose Hugo for a minor error in a report. Publicly, he, visibly shaken, remained silent for the rest of the evening. But the next day, he left an envelope on Anna's desk. It was a resignation letter and a warning. I'm not James, and you're not invincible. 2 weeks later, Anna was informed that Hugo had filed a lawsuit against her. Psychological harassment, persecution, abuse of power, and more. He cited instances of inappropriate conduct and emotional instability. The company, under pressure from investors and shareholders, launched an internal investigation. And that's when the ghosts started coming out of the closet. Hugo's lawsuit was the spark. For the first time in years, Anna felt the weight of distrust settle over her inside the company she had ruled like an untouchable goddess. A compliance committee was hastily assembled. Computers were audited. Old reports re-examined. Every click, every transaction, every email came under a magnifying glass. Anna tried to maintain her composure, but the sparkle in her eyes was gone. Her red lipstick had turned darker, her smile more rare. In the dead of night, alone in her penthouse, Anna began to hear strange sounds. The echo of voices that weren't there, email notifications that vanished, shadows on the balcony. The psychological pressure was corroding her mind. One night, while reviewing a financial report, the name of a contracted company caught her eye. She didn't remember signing off on it, but the amount transferred was too high to ignore. Nearly $4 million over 2 years. This didn't go through me, or did it? She muttered, furrowing her brow. In the following days, she delved into internal audits. What she found was a tangle of ghost contracts, fake invoices, and service providers linked to non-existent addresses. But the worst was yet to come. Part of the money had been transferred to accounts connected to Paul. Impossible. He'd never get involved, right? Her voice faltered. But yes, Paul was involved. The man she had kept out of convenience now appeared as a key link in an internal corruption scheme that threatened not only her career, but her freedom. Desperate, Anna began doing the unthinkable, deleting traces, rewriting reports, calling private meetings with key directors. She tried to control the chaos, as she always had. But the system had turned against her. HR, finance, legal all watched in silence. Emails stopped being answered. Doors on the lower floors no longer opened for her. She was being slowly isolated, like a virus about to be purged. One day, in the elevator, she ran into Mariana, a timid intern from the contract department. The girl, usually with her head down, dared to look Anna in the eyes for a moment. And in that gaze, there was more than fear. There was judgment. Anna felt her world crumble. But it wasn't over yet. With each step, a new mystery unraveled. Mariana knows too much. Mariana's eyes in the elevator weren't just a coincidence. The intern, invisible to many, had been a silent observer of the company's backstage dealings. And for months, she'd been documenting inconsistencies in the contracts. The week after the elevator incident, Anna began receiving anonymous notes left in her office. One each day, all typed on a typewriter. The first read, "You think you're in control, but someone else is already at the wheel." The second, "The truth is in the 2019 files." The third was the most unsettling. Paul never acted alone. Anna panicked. She dug through old documents, accessed outdated systems, and realized that the irregularities began when she entrusted vendor contracts to a manager who had been promoted by Paul, a man who was now retired, living on the outskirts of Mexico City on a secluded property. Anna decided to go there unannounced. The place was eerie, surrounded by tall trees, with surveillance cameras and locked gates. The ex-manager refused to receive her. "You're in danger, Anna, and not because of me. You cross people who don't forgive." On the way back, sitting in her car, trembling with fear and rage, Anna realized the hole might be far deeper than she thought. That night, Mariana knocked on her door. Timid, nervous, holding a flash drive. "I shouldn't, but I have to show you this before they make me disappear." The contents were shocking. Recordings of secret meetings, email exchanges between Paul and the legal department, bank transfers to offshore accounts, and even photos of Anna at events she didn't even remember attending. All stored with chilling precision. "You've been watched for years, Anna," said Mariana, her voice trembling. Anna broke down in tears. For the first time, the queen of steel shattered. The next day, Anna arrived at the company before sunrise. For the first time in years, she wasn't wearing heels. Her steps were cautious, her eyes puffy, and her makeup had been replaced by visible exhaustion. She was determined to face the ghosts and salvage what remained of her reputation. With Mariana's flash drive in hand, Anna called an emergency board meeting. For the first time, she brought no numbers, no charts, just truth. She presented the files, exposed the embezzlement, and confessed that, yes, she had covered up irregularities to protect Paul, that she had tried to contain the storm alone. But now, she was asking for a chance to cooperate with the investigation and clean up part of the mess. The silence in the room was sharp. One of the board members, in a low voice, said, "You're protecting someone much bigger, Anna, and you know it." She didn't answer, but her eyes confirmed it. That night, as she left the building, she was approached by two men in black suits. Without identifying themselves, they handed her a brown envelope. Inside was a single photo. Paul, seated at an upscale restaurant, beside a man wanted by Interpol, Ramiro Estevez, a known operator in the Latin American public procurement cartel. Anna felt the ground disappear beneath her. "You always knew, didn't you?" she asked her husband when she got home. Paul, calm as if they were discussing the weather, replied, "You never really wanted to know, Anna. You just wanted to keep everything under control." She collapsed to her knees in shock. Paul was arrested that night while attempting to flee to Belize. Anna, now fully exposed, received news that the U.S. Department of Justice was opening a formal investigation against her for money laundering and international criminal conspiracy. But something even worse happened. Mariana had vanished. In the following days, the entire building whispered about Mariana. No one saw her. No one knew if she had resigned, been fired, or something worse. Anna called the intern's number over and over. Nothing. She visited her small apartment. The door was ajar, lights off, signs that someone had left in a hurry. In the center of the table, a note in her handwriting. They know I talked. The police were called, but nothing was done. Officially, Mariana was no longer an employee. Unofficially, she had vanished like dust in the wind. Consumed by guilt and paranoia, Anna started moving around with bodyguards. Her home was outfitted with more cameras. Her routine was reduced to the bare minimum. Friends distanced themselves. Executives resigned. The queen now ruled a ghost kingdom. One rainy late afternoon, she received a black paper envelope. No sender. Inside, a single flash drive. On it, a recording of Mariana, filmed on a phone, inside an unknown room. If you're watching this, it's because Anna didn't protect me. Behind her, a wall with religious symbols, red candles, and the muffled sound of voices speaking Spanish with a Caribbean accent. It was a message, not to the world, but to Anna. You knew everything, Anna. And now, they're coming for you. The camera dropped. The recording ended. Anna dropped the flash drive to the floor in shock. She finally understood. The empire she had built was made of glass, and it was shattering. Anna was officially removed from her position. A dry, one-page notice circulated through the halls of the company she had helped expand. Her name disappeared from the organizational chart, her photo from the walls, her badge deactivated. But the real judgment was still to come. In courts in Mexico and the U.S., criminal cases were opened. The FBI and Interpol now wanted answers. The charges included money laundering, corporate fraud, international bribery, and collusion with organized crime. While her lawyers tried to negotiate plea deals, Anna spent her days in silence. There were no more reporters at her doorstep. No fans, no hatred, just emptiness. One night, walking alone on a beach in Tulum, barefoot, a veil over her face, Anna looked out at the horizon. She saw a figure in the distance. For a moment, she thought it was Mariana, but it was just a tourist, her hair blowing in the wind. She then remembered the young woman's words. You knew everything, Anna. And she did. The system she had built was made of control, silence, and convenience. And that system had collapsed. 2 years later, Anna lives in seclusion in rural Mexico. Her name still appears in investigative reports. The criminal trial crawls forward, but her assets have been frozen. She lives with the bare minimum. Paul remains in prison. He never responded to Anna's letters. James and Andy married in Boston and never returned. One gray morning, Anna wakes from a strange dream. She's in her old office, but everything is in ruins. The windows shattered, papers flying, the city cloaked in fog. Alone, in the center of the room, stands a mirror. She walks toward it. In the reflection, she doesn't see the powerful executive. She sees the real woman, tired, weathered, human. I've always been this woman, but I never wanted to accept it, she whispered to the mirror in her dream. She woke up with tears in her eyes. She got up, walked to the only mirror in the house, looked at herself for long minutes. For the first time, without makeup, without control, without excuses. And then she smiled, not out of pride, but out of acceptance. The Steel Queen had fallen, but the woman behind the armor was finally free.